Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
Today we've got 5 major stories for you. First, Microsoft is dropping a $30 billion bombshell on AI infrastructure, fueled by its Azure cloud business hitting a massive $75 billion in annual revenue. Then we'll see how China's regulators are questioning Nvidia's H20 AI chip, threatening a huge order, just as new tests show Huawei's Ascend 910B chip is surprisingly competitive. After that, OpenAI is getting 100,000 Nvidia GPUs for its Stargate data center in Norway, a project for European sovereign AI that might still fall under US law. Next, ARM Holdings CEO Rene Haas confirms a plan to build its own chips, a direct challenge to customers like Apple after a staggering 42% profit drop. And finally, we'll look at how an AI physiotherapy app from Flok Health slashed NHS waiting lists by 55%, raising new questions about legal liability and trust. Let's start with a single statistic that might just change your entire perspective on Microsoft. The company is forecasting a record $30 billion in capital spending for the current quarter. That's not for a year. That's for just the next 3 months. A figure that blew past analyst expectations. And that 30 billion isn't just an abstract number. We're talking about a massive physical expansion of data centers, the giant power-hungry warehouses that form the backbone of the cloud. This is a direct investment in servers, networking gear, and the buildings to house them all. So what's fueling this unprecedented cash burn? It's their massive bet on artificial intelligence, and the returns are proving to be staggering. Microsoft's cloud platform, Azure, just saw its revenue surge by an incredible 39%. And for the first time ever, the company revealed that Azure has officially surpassed $75 billion in annual revenue. These AI investments are translating directly into massive sales. What's often overlooked is the very real physical cost of this digital gold rush. Research from Goldman Sachs predicts that data center power demand will grow 160% by 2030, largely because of AI. And it's not just electricity. A single large data center can consume up to 2 million liters of water every single day for cooling. That's the same amount of water used by over 6,000 households. The scale is just immense. This aggressive spending puts Microsoft on a path to potentially outspend all its rivals. After Google and Meta also announced huge spending plans, this move from Microsoft signals a new level of intensity in the battle for AI dominance. This isn't a small skirmish, it's a full-blown infrastructure war. In fact, Morgan Stanley analysts are now forecasting that these big tech companies, the so-called hyperscalers, could collectively spend $300 billion on this kind of infrastructure by 2025. That's the price of admission to the future, and investors are clearly buying it, sending the company shares soaring 9% in extended trading. And for anyone thinking this is just wild, speculative spending, Microsoft's chief financial officer just put that idea to rest. She went on the record to say this spending is directly correlated to, quote, contracted on the books business that we need to deliver. So how is that even possible? Well, Microsoft is essentially pre-selling its future capacity. They offer major clients things like reserved instances and capacity reservations. Think of it like a long-term lease. A company pays upfront or commits to a multi-year contract to guarantee they have the computing power they need for their own AI projects, often at a discount. This gives Microsoft the guaranteed predictable revenue stream it needs to justify a $30 billion shopping spree. This all points to one central reality. While Microsoft's cloud business still trails the market leader, Amazon Web Services, this $75 billion milestone is a direct shot across the bow. To protect its bet, Microsoft is also playing smart, hedging its famous partnership with OpenAI by also hosting models from rivals like France's Mistral AI. The AI arms race is officially on, and Microsoft is writing the biggest checks. This isn't just about building better chatbots. It's a high-stakes war for the foundational infrastructure of the next generation of technology. Speaking of the high-stakes AI race, the battle for the chips that power it all is getting even more complicated over in China. Now, get this, the country's top internet regulator just summoned Nvidia to a meeting, and the reason could derail a massive part of their business. They're officially raising security concerns over Nvidia's H20 AI chip. The twist, This is happening just weeks after the US government reversed its own export ban on that exact same chip. Nvidia had designed the H20 specifically for the Chinese market, and after a long battle, the door was finally open. Now, China is the one threatening to slam it shut. The heart of the conflict is a US proposal to equip advanced chips with tracking and positioning functions. China's regulator is worried this could create backdoor security risks, putting Chinese user data and privacy on the line. To understand the core of this conflict, you have to look at the tech itself. The US isn't just talking about a simple GPS tracker. We're talking about advanced hardware geofencing. One proposed method is called delay-based location verification. Imagine the chip sending out a signal to multiple known servers and measuring the response time. Based on those tiny delays, you can calculate its physical location without needing GPS, making it much harder to trick. So when China hears tracking, they think backdoor. And a hardware backdoor is a nightmare scenario for any nation, a secret flaw built into the chip that could let an outsider bypass all security. And the stakes here are staggering. Nvidia just recently placed an order for 300,000 of these H20 chipsets, driven by what was supposed to be massive demand from China. That colossal order now hangs in the balance. This isn't just a negotiation tactic either. One analyst from Gavacal Dragonomics put it bluntly, Nvidia chips are now dispensable for China. They can be easily put on the negotiating table. And that statement might not be a bluff, because interestingly enough, China's domestic chips are getting surprisingly powerful. Take Huawei's Ascend 910B chip. In some key performance tests, it actually outperforms Nvidia's H20. For example, in a critical measure for AI processing speed called FP16 performance, the Ascend 910B is significantly faster. While Nvidia still has a massive advantage with its software ecosystem, the hardware gap is closing fast. This is about China building a whole self-reliant AI ecosystem. The message is clear. China believes it has more domestic options than ever before. This is not an empty threat. In 2023, Beijing took similar action against US chipmaker Micron over security risks. To make matters worse for Nvidia, it's already facing a separate anti-monopoly investigation in the country. This reveals a potentially massive unintended consequence of US policy. By forcing the creation of weaker export-only chips like the H20, the US might be accidentally helping China. It gives Chinese companies a clear, fixed performance target to beat, creating a protected market where domestic champions like Huawei can grow stronger without facing Nvidia's top-tier products. In a strange twist, the sanctions designed to slow China down might actually be accelerating its journey to technological independence. From a potential roadblock for Nvidia in China, we now turn to a massive green light for them in Europe. A seemingly impossible collaboration became a reality yesterday. OpenAI is set to plug 100,000 Nvidia GPUs into a single data center in Norway. Now, you might be wondering, how are they getting their hands on 100,000 of the most sought-after chips on the planet? Well, this kind of priority access reveals a powerful preferential relationship between OpenAI and Nvidia. It's something smaller European AI companies can only dream of, potentially creating a chokehold on the very resources they need to compete. The AI giant is backing a new Stargate-branded project in Norway, but it's not going it alone. It's a joint venture with British firm Nscale and Norwegian energy infrastructure firm Aker. The reason for the joint venture is actually a clever bit of financial engineering. It allows them to share the massive cost and risk and navigate complex European investment regulations more easily. The price tag for just the initial phase, the partners have each committed around $1 billion. The facility will be one of the biggest in Europe, running entirely on renewable power with a massive 230 megawatts of capacity. And while renewable power sounds fantastic, we're talking about Norwegian hydropower. The sheer energy demand from a facility like this can have real-world consequences on the local grid and prices. It creates a complex balance between attracting high-tech industry and ensuring stable resources for everyone else. But that's not the whole picture. This is part of a much larger global play. The original Stargate project, involving OpenAI, Oracle, and Japan's SoftBank, is a $500 billion plan to build out AI infrastructure over the next 4 years. Research shows Stargate is a formal joint venture established in early 2025. They're taking the initiative global, from the US to the UAE, and now to a site just outside Narvik in northern Norway. This is all being positioned as the answer to Europe's push for so-called sovereign AI, the demand to have data and AI workloads processed on European soil. This is where the situation takes a more complex turn. The term sovereign AI brings up a huge legal and political catch. Even if the data is stored on servers in Norway, the fact that a US company like OpenAI is a key partner brings a US law called the CLOUD Act into play. This act gives US authorities the power to demand access to data held by American companies, no matter where in the world that data is stored. Microsoft has even admitted it can't guarantee that EU data would be safe from US legal requests. It makes you wonder, is this Europe taking control of its AI future, or is it handing the keys to the kingdom to Silicon Valley? We were just talking about the giants solidifying their hold on AI infrastructure. Now, let's shift our focus to a potential challenger that's been quietly supplying the blueprints all along. The story begins with a decision that caught everyone by surprise. ARM Holdings, the architecture behind nearly every smartphone on the planet, is making a monumental pivot. CEO Rene Haas just confirmed the company is now looking to design its own processors and possibly even entire chips. For decades, ARM's whole business model was like being Switzerland. They designed the blueprints and licensed them to everyone, staying neutral. Now they want to build the tank. The mention of entire chips is especially interesting because research suggests they're looking at chiplets. Think of them as high-tech Lego bricks. Instead of one giant chip, you can combine smaller, specialized chiplets to build a custom processor, making manufacturing cheaper and more flexible. This decision brings both potential benefits and comes with inherent risks. ARM is gambling with its core identity. Its customers, like Qualcomm and even Apple, might see this as a betrayal. Why buy blueprints from a company that's also building its own house next door, trying to compete with you? This could push them to look at alternatives, like the open source architecture RISC-V, and this bombshell was dropped right after the company reported some brutal numbers. Net income absolutely cratered, falling a staggering 42% from a year earlier. Shares immediately plunged as much as 9% in after-hours trading. So why the sudden high-stakes gamble? ARM CFO admitted their biggest business, royalties from smartphone chips, just underwhelmed. So the thing is, this is a symptom of a much larger trend. The smartphone market is maturing. The explosive growth ARM relied on for years is drying up, forcing a real identity crisis at the company. So now, ARM is looking to move from being the neutral arms dealer to a frontline soldier. However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer of strategy at play. ARM's parent company, SoftBank, which controls a massive 90% of the company, just expanded its own licensing agreement, pointing to a potential $500 billion project with OpenAI to build AI infrastructure. This is a direct shot at Nvidia's dominance in AI, and here's why. ARM-based chips are famous for their power efficiency. For massive AI data centers where electricity costs are astronomical, having chips that deliver more performance per watt is a game changer. It's why Amazon is already using its own ARM-based Graviton chips and Microsoft has its Cobalt CPUs. They're trying to build more efficient AI systems, and ARM is the key. With SoftBank's 90% ownership, this isn't just a corporate pivot. It's part of a grand vision. SoftBank's leader, Masayoshi Son, is reportedly trying to build a $100 billion AI chip powerhouse. He isn't just nudging ARM in a new direction, he's steering it directly into the center of the AI revolution. After all that talk of chips and corporate strategy, let's bring it back to how AI is impacting people's daily lives, and in this case, their health. For the millions of people in the UK suffering from back pain, the official wait for treatment can be more than 18 weeks, but a new AI program just produced a result that could turn the entire system on its head. In a landmark NHS trial, a physiotherapy app didn't just shorten the line, it slashed the waiting list by a staggering 55%. And believe it or not, this isn't just a simple checklist app. The technology from a company called Flok Health uses an AI physiotherapist that conducts automated video call assessments right on a patient's phone. It analyzes symptoms, prescribes exercises using video of real human physiotherapists, and even adapts its recommendations based on real-time feedback. The impact is profound because, according to the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy, there is a full-blown crisis in the field, with patient demand massively outstripping the NHS's capacity to hire. In just 3 months, the technology freed up 2,500 hours of clinician time. one clinical lead for the NHS Trust put it bluntly, stating that nationally they couldn't train or afford enough staff to meet the rising demand. She calls the new technology a potential game changer. One patient waiting 17 weeks for an appointment got access to the app and started her treatment that very same day. Another, who has suffered from back pain for 25 years, admitted she was very disappointed to be offered an app. But after trying it, she said the exercises worked better than any of the dozens of treatments she'd had before. These individual stories are backed by larger data. In the NHS trials, 100% of patients reported their experience with the AI was either better or the same as a human physiotherapist, and 86% said their symptoms improved. The situation presents a fascinating duality. On one side, this frees up experts for complex cases, while on the other, it raises questions about the future of the profession. There's a real concern about the potential de-skilling of junior physiotherapists who need routine cases to build their own expertise. If AI handles all the common problems, how do the next generation of physios learn? The technology is proving it can solve a crisis that humans alone could not. But a recent study found 1 in 6 people still believe AI will make healthcare worse. So the final question isn't whether the technology works, it's whether we're ready to trust it. And that lack of trust isn't just a feeling, it's rooted in some very real unanswered questions. First, the digital divide. About 7% of UK households have no internet access, and an estimated 10 million adults lack the basic digital skills to even use an app like this. This could create a two-tiered system, worsening healthcare for the disadvantaged. And then there's the massive legal question. Who is responsible if the AI gets it wrong? Is it the software company, the NHS Trust, or the human clinician overseeing the system? Right now, the law tends to hold the human accountable, putting them in a moral crumple zone for the technology's mistakes. Until we solve these issues of equity and liability, that question of trust will remain.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.